Hi everybody, and yeah, I'll start that bit again then. Hi everybody, and welcome to this first stream. Now I have no idea how this is going to work tonight. We have been working on the tech side of this all week, and I had everything ready. We even did a test run this afternoon, and the camera to my left here was working fine. And all of a sudden I've turned it on tonight to start this stream and the camera isn't working. Well, it is, but it's lagging. So I've had to use a lesser quality face cam. So please, I hope that doesn't disturb everything too much. I do hope you still enjoy the demonstration. And I am going to get on with that. I keep looking at the other camera. Of course, it's not on. I'm meant to be looking straight ahead at you guys. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this stream, and as I say, at the end of lockdown, and we had issues back then with tech, and we're still having them a little bit, I'm afraid, but hopefully as time goes on and the interest in these streams grow, we will endeavor to make things a little better, a little more reliable, and that is the thing that dogs us. The painting side of it, hey, I've got no problem with that. I'll enjoy the painting, and I hope you guys will too, and that will continue stream after stream. It's the tech gods that I have to appease, and I'm still not too sure about how that happens. Anyway, hopefully there should be a list somewhere for all the colors that I'm using, and I've got a little pile of brushes here. Now, just quickly going into these, we've got brushes that are pretty much all one kind except that one there. Let's get rid of that one for a minute. These are all from Rosemary. You all know my preferred brush if you've been watching any of my demonstrations in the past, whether it's oil, watercolor or acrylics. I use Rosemary and Company brushes. And a little bit of a plug, if you do go on her site and buy any of her brushes, when you get to that checkout, just put my name in capitals, Unbroken Paul Apps. That would be fantastic. You don't pay any more, but it does help me out a great deal. Anyway, what have I got here? Well, dagger, and I've got two sizes of those, the large and the medium. They come up in, I think, 3/8, ½ inch and 3/4, something like that. But those are daggers. They are very useful brushes. Now, I'm showing you all these, but I probably won't even use half of them. I've got a couple of flats and a couple of sizes of flats. I tend to use long flats. I think that they got a little bit more spring in them, and I think they're a little bit more responsive. Just checking everything is working as it should do. And I'm just checking Keith, hi. There's names, Tracy, Selick, and yeah, I'm just enjoying seeing all the new names as well as old friends as well coming on board for the stream. But anyway, mainly I use long flats because they are longer and they're more responsive. I also have a couple of riggers in here, and I also have just a very sad little filbert brush, which is a Shiraz. That is only Shiraz because that's what I've got and pulled out the thing. The rest of these are evergreen. And as I say, I probably won't be using them all. Now, the subject tonight I felt was quite topical in as much as it is a spring lamb. And I've got all that. And hopefully, if you are painting along with me, I don't know if you are or you're not, but the reference for that was over on my Podia or on my Patreon for you to download. And it still is. It will remain there because this video will be on my streams. And if you're not painting along with me right now, you can more than able to download those references and paint along at your own speed after tonight's event. So one thing I will say before we get on with the painting is if you have general comments like hi and all these things and whatever, you find that's it, just tap them away in the details on the chat. And I got two people, Ben and Wendy, who are moderators. They are looking after the chat for me. But if you have a specific question that you want to ask relating to this, to acrylics or anything at all like that, then can I ask you to do one thing, because I'm going to be glancing at that chat every so often. And if you want to ask a specific question, put a Q, capital Q, with capitalized question. And that sounds a bit odd, but it's a little easier for me in the chat just to identify it. And hopefully if I see it, I can get to answer it for you as I'm going along with the painting. Without further ado, let's get on and let's get started. Okay, so now then, we have one lamb. This canvas or this panel is a piece of MDF. I think it's maximum fiber density board, something like that. But it is a common timber product in today's modern world. And one little thing about this, apart from the fact this has got several coats of gesso on it, and I put it on with a roller because I quite like a smooth surface. Haven't always done, and there are plenty of panels out there that over the years that have got rough textures on there, as well as paintbrush marks, but I've gone into painting these acrylics and I do like a nice smooth surface, so I prefer the board, and I put on gesso with a roller. I paint it on first, then put a roller on, and that keeps it nice and smooth. And I put 3 coats on. I roller it once this way, once that way, and back again, and that way I get a nice even coat. And then once it's all dry, I can use some very, very fine grit sandpaper just to take the rough off the top if there is any, and I'm ready to paint. Okay, I'm just going to check a couple of things before we get underway. Just make sure everything is as it should be. We do have a few problems, I see. Bear with me. Ben, if you're listening, I hope this is not too much, but we have a 22% skip frames due to encoding lag. So I have no idea what is going on, but hopefully that's not too bad. Anyway, right, I'm going to proceed as though there's nothing wrong. I really do hope that you guys get to see the entire stream as it goes. All right, now first things first then. The colors Ben I see is just put up for you to look at, and I'm just looking at the thing here. Keith, the lag for me is only 200 milliseconds, not 3 seconds. Right, the other camera. Dear, I don't know. Anyway, I've got to proceed with this and hope the heck that this stream continues on. I have no idea what is happening, but first and foremost, let's get on. And I'm just going to use some generic colors. Now I've got lots of black on here and umber. I don't use black on its own. I always mix it down with other color just to give me generic colors, and I can darken them this way. All I want to do, quite honestly, is to simply come around the edge of our lamb. So I'm just coming in here. I'm just going to isolate the lamb. Now I could go around and draw much of the lamb in if I wanted to and create yet another outline. But I don't really want to do that. There's no need. We're going to be painting most of that out if we did. I'm using a bit of a small flat brush to do this with at the moment. And we're going to carry on around some of the shape here. If I go quiet, I do apologize. Just concentrating slightly to make sure I don't go too far too quickly and make too many mistakes as I go. And there will also be the odd little lapse in attention as I look up and read the thing here. Thanks Ben. Card. Okay, we're still looking at color. Thanks Ben for doing that. So I'm just going to come around here, and the isolation of the animal is fine. You don't really need to do the outline. I'm just coming up here to paint some of what will be the background. It's as simple as that. Now you could use a bigger brush. I'm only just going around with a small one just to get started on this. And I'm just going to try as much as I can to isolate this little fella. So we're painting space primarily. That's what we're doing. and that negative space isolates our animal. We're going to have to come back in again and do more at some point, but we just literally, we're making a start. I'm just coming in here, around the cheek, around the muzzle, take that to there. I'm moving around because there's such a glare off of my lights for me. I hope that you're not seeing that, but for me I am getting quite a bit of a glare off the top surface. Now that's partly because once the drawing was done, I simply isolated the drawing. Didn't really need to, but sometimes when you work in oil, you seal the drawing underneath, and that way if you have to rub back on your oil and start afresh, you don't lose the precious drawing. Well, of course, with acrylics you don't really need to do that, because you are actually what brand of paint? Liquitex is the paint, and also fast drying or open slow drying. Well, acrylics will dry according to the environment that you're painting them in. So in other words, with the lovely warm day that we are enjoying right now, these will dry fairly quickly. Now because I've got a gesso top, and then I've gone over with a glaze medium, which is meant to have been a matte one. To you guys, I think you can see it as matte. I'm getting a sheen off of it. Matte, in my opinion, is never truly matte. It is always like a semi-matte or semi-gloss finish. So all I'm doing literally is the start, really, and just getting in enough information that we can carry on with and move forward. And I think I've done enough there for the moment. We'll come back to that. I'm going to come up a notch to a slightly bigger brush, something I can get in there with quickly. And yes, oh sorry, I'm looking at the wrong part of the chat. I'm going to come in with some sap green. Sap green is by nature absolutely transparent. I'm going to knock it down. I don't want the pure green. I want quite a dark green. I want to isolate. You see how thin that goes on this board? And you can see the difference where it's going over here and here. It's because the transparency in the green paint is always going to be a bit of an issue. If you were to use maybe a Viridian or something like that, something with a bit of opacity, indeed, if you come in here now and bring a little bit of white into that mix, quite quickly you will see how that will cover much better than it did first time around. So I could have come in here, I suppose, and started this in this fashion so that I'm almost up my work at this point. But I just wanted to get the job started and give you the option and the ability and the knowledge to know that you do not have to draw the outline a second time, as it were. All we're doing is making the colors behind, the negative spaces behind, outline our animal, so that when we do come in with those beautiful pale colors, then it will stand out quite naturally. Okay. Nothing else is being said. So just for those who've come in a little later, just welcome to the stream. It's the first one I've done since lockdown, and Ben and I certainly, and in the latter part Wendy and I and Ben have all been working together to try and figure out the best way to make this work for everybody. And so if it doesn't go to plan tonight for one reason or another, it won't be for the want of trying. And I do hope that if it does go pear-shaped on the tech side, then Ben is here to help out those of you who might need a bit of help, and ask him a question if you get technical issues of getting online and watching this. And indeed, if it does go wrong, please bear with me. We will try and restore it, and if all else fails and we have to abandon it, then I hope you will give me a chance and come back again on another evening, and we will try it again. And from that point of view, I have some new hardware coming into the house tomorrow that may in certain ways allow me to enjoy slightly faster speeds than I currently enjoy, but it is always a problem. Okay, well, I say it's always a problem, doesn't always have to be a problem. So this is giving you a lot of chit chat, and I'm not getting very far, so I'm just literally trying to paint out some of the background and lose some of the grey colour of the board. Now I'm putting in some lighter colours. I went in with white. It was probably a little bit of a mistake, to be fair. So I keep looking at the chat's not moving, so don't forget, if you've got any questions, then put them down there in capitals, and that way I know it's a relevant question and I can answer it to the best of my ability for you. Right. Now these streams, albeit this is the first of what I hope to be very many over the coming months, even longer, is that they will be on YouTube. There will be 2 in May, so there'll be another one in a fortnight, and I will post the details of that on my channel later on. I will also put it out on my email newsletter, and I will also put it out on my Patreon. From whichever way that you pick up that information, I shall put it there for you to enjoy and see and get involved with. Now, with all that said, the 2 in May will be added to by 2 in June, and that's my plan for the first start, to do 4 free to view streams via YouTube. And then in July and onwards, my aim is to have 1 free one each month on here on YouTube, and it will last for about an hour or so, maybe hour and a half, may even be longer, who knows, just depends how much I'm enjoying what I'm doing, or forget to stop. And then I plan on doing a paid one in on my Podia as a webinar, and so that will be longer and it will be more involved, and it will be done in a fashion that you can maybe, I hope, talk to me. I may do it via a Zoom, so that we have a little more control, and participants who will have bought a ticket, as it were, will then have the ability to do much more than just sit and watch and put into the chat. Question: is it always advisable to start with the background? Not necessarily, Keith. To be fair, I just wanted to get some of that grey out of it so you guys can sort of see exactly what I'm painting for a kickoff. So no, where you start is entirely up to you. I am just made a choice here, a conscious decision to isolate the animal first and foremost. But you can, if you feel happier getting rid of that background. Now there is one little caveat to that, and that is that when we paint, we judge our colors based upon what we see around it. In other words, if I was to mix up a color for the lamb, for instance, against all this gray, I might make the wrong decision because it's surrounded in the gray, and I actually simply mix a color that I feel is correct, but it's based on what I see. When you have other colors around, you start relating to whatever is happening around color wise, and you start making the judgment to mix a color in a certain way that you think is correct based on this. It's simply a case that the color you see is always affected by the colors that surround the area. So it's why many artists will take out the white space on a piece of paper or on a canvas before they ever start to paint with any intent. They just want to block it in. You've heard the term of block-ins, and it's quite simply, let's get rid of all that white area and let us come in with colors that we can then start making better informed decisions on the mixes that we're going to be making. Now here you see I'm putting a bit more warmth into the green, still being affected. It's quite thin on here, but I'm not using white any further to dilute that or make it lighter. I'm using Naples yellow, which is an opaque color, but it's color nonetheless, which is better. It's not as cooling as white is. White on its own is a very cool color, and it will cool every other color mixes that you use it with. You're going to need some lovely colors like that to put your or punch your highlights in with, but at certain times it's not always advisable just to mix down a color to make it lighter with white. You have other options sometimes, and it's worth noting that. Okay, I'm just going to take a little where are we? I'm just going to move my reference photo just a moment, and I'm going to start putting it in using a smaller flat, not as small as the first one, 1/2 inch, something like that. And I'm going to start putting in some colors around this animal. So the colors I'm going to start with are going to be some of the mid-tone colors. Now with oils you work from dark to light, dark to light. Watercolors you work light to dark, and in theory, because you're painting predominantly with opaque colors with acrylics, then you tend to work dark to light. But the beauty of acrylics are that you do not need to necessarily adhere to that rule. You can most happily paint from dark to light, light to dark, and keep swapping that around. A lot of water on my brush here. It's not a good plan. Just take that off. Yes, you can, because of the nature of acrylics, because it dries fast and because you can add layer upon layer, especially if you paint quite thinly, you can quite happily go from one way to the other. Now you see I'm putting a generic color in of a blue cool color. That's fine. I know there's a lot of warm colors on this. I'm just coming in first and foremost. That paint is drying so fast. Now it is a lovely warm evening here where I live, and so we've had the enjoyment of a early summer day, and it's been really nice. But in the evening, my room starts off cold in the morning, but my studio gets quite hot in the evening, and so consequently paint will dry on me at an alarming rate. I even got the hairdryer out just in case I cause myself an issue tonight, and I really don't think that that's going to be needed whatsoever. But I'm just coming down here and I am just blocking in, simply using different colors, but I'm covering out the grey as I go. Nice thing about a grey over a white or anything else, I mean, it's a color, it's a tone. Grey, sorry, not a color, it's a tone. But by putting a mid-tone in, we all associate grey, middle tone grey, as if you were thinking of a set of squares, say 0 to 10, 0 being white, 10 being black, then this would be a number 5. This is a grey mid-tone. And by using that philosophy, when you come in to put a color on a canvas or a tone on a canvas, by which you can then measure everything else, you can instantly start applying light colors like a white, pure white, or any other color you want to, and you can see it immediately. And if you were to then come back in and put a dark in, you can see it immediately. Whereas if you have white, then you are basing your decisions all upon that white being seen on a white canvas, and invariably it can't be. So you are going to struggle with that, and also the understanding of what colors you need to mix with that to make it work for you. So a mid-tone color, there is a name, art name, I'm not quite sure what it is. I used to say it and I can't remember it now, but there is a name, and Jada. Jada, have you got your things sorted out yet? Because I've been working with Podia, and they did say that, or they did give me that message to get back to you. I'm hoping that you are now enjoying the course, but please let me know. Answering your question, do you use any slow drying medium? No, I don't. I really don't. I enjoy oils when I want something to take its time to dry. If I want to rework it the next day, then I will paint in oils happily, and that is my preferred medium. Media, sorry, and not medium. And in acrylics, I enjoy them because of the fast drying action. Oh, Jada, that's great. I'm glad it's sorted out. That's a relief. I was getting a bit worried, but I'm glad it's sorted out, and you're enjoying the course. All right. So, yes, where was I? I can swap media because I am happy in painting in all media. Nothing phases me from that point of view, but that is a lifelong study of paint in that regard. So I've always given myself the discipline of learning everything I can about the media that I work in, and over my extended 150 years of painting, I've managed to tuck away a little bit of information regarding all of them, and happy using all of them. So anyway, I'm getting silly, don't want to do that. Let's come in and put some colour in around this fella's head and ears, into there, and coming down in here. I'm not looking at the stats. I think I better just check. I've got a sneaky feeling that the stats are... Where are they? We have lost a few frames in one way, but I think generally we are okay. I'm going to reset them, hope they don't go bad again. There's just a slight stopping there. I just wanted to check that everything seems to be running pretty good. Right, so anyway, let's get back to this. So yes, I forget where I was now. Never mind. I'm sure somebody will have another question in a minute. Keith, question. It doesn't slow drying medium, only slow it down by about 1 minute. Well, I can't actually truthfully answer that, Keith, because I don't use it, and I think that there are other ways to slow down acrylics if you really feel the need to. You can actually do what I've done here and seal the face, and if you're working on a canvas, then you can paint over the back of the canvas with a medium and seal the back. What you're trying to do is to prevent the water from evaporating too quickly, and I think that you will spend more time trying to do that and battling with something that is really very hard to control, and you'll get so frustrated that you may even stop painting, or you may ruin in trying the painting that you're working on. So I think that what you've got to say with acrylics is that the acrylic, I mean, a little potted history, acrylics have been around for many years, as most of us all know. The actual acrylic polymer compound was developed back in the 1930s, believe it or not, but it wasn't until the middle to late 1970s were the paints created, or at least the processes were worked out to add pigments to them and create artist paints. Now, the first ones, and I have to put my hand up, I used them. I had them in my paint box, and they were some of the first paints that I ever enjoyed outside of watercolor, and that was what they called polymers, and they were created as some of the first acrylic paints by Winsor and Newton, and the great Mr. Hockney used them in many of his paintings. Some of those paintings, like all things, have got the issues when it comes to preservation. The paints were okay-ish, and like many things in the early days, we have to wait for later iterations and formulas to come along and make them a little better. But back then they were called polymers, and they were the only thing that were the forerunners of acrylics that we know today. But since that time, the acrylic polymers, the acrylic compounds, have been increased in terms of quality and how they perform and what we can expect from them. So I'm just putting in a mid-tone little wash over the top. And yes, so acrylic paint now is very, very diverse, and there are many manufacturers out there that do an extremely good job. I used to enjoy, many years ago, and for many years, I used to demonstrate for Liquitex up in London and in other venues that they sent me to, but mainly the big art display shows that were in a place called Islington in London. And I'm going back so many hundreds of years, it's unbelievable, but there you go. And yes, Liquitex was where I started to learn really how colors work, because I was able and very lucky to have the ability to just raid the stores, as it were, and get the amount of paint that I needed without actually paying for it. So you can't not, can you? It's rude not to. Anyway, so that said, that's a little potted history when it comes to acrylics. I am painting away as we go, so if you've got any questions about what's happening, please try and get a question in and we will take it from there. I'm just skipping over all the information. Nothing is definite. If you watch any of my demonstrations, they all begin this way, whether it's a watercolor and an oil or anything else. They are simply fact-finding forays with color and a little bit of structure. And as this dries, I then go in with the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. And that's how the painting will develop over the course of the making of it. Now, the beautiful, what I was actually wanting to say was that when you are painting, I mean, the question came up about stopping them drying. I think that's what started my thought. And I think that was Jada that was asking about using drying mediums. They do exist, but I don't see the purpose of them. Why would you? There are, let's just say, well, you just gave me some great insight. Yeah, just read your last comment, Jada. I mean, the thing is that if you're working in oil, you do have a drying period of time after you've applied that paint. That's fine. And with acrylics, you have a time when the paint will dry, and that's fine too. I think what I'm trying to say is that each type of paint that you use has its own basic characteristics. And for me, oils are about taking their time to dry and having the ability to work that over a few days, even by re-wetting if I needed to. And acrylics dries fast, enabling me to get in there with a lot of layers, a lot of information very, very quickly. And so what I'm trying to say is, instead of fighting the medium to a standstill and losing half the time because you want it to do something that it's not really designed to do, I would venture to suggest that if you took up oils for one part, and if you want to work quite fast, you have the ability to work in acrylic. And I think that using the strengths of each of the paints that you are working with for you as opposed to against you really is the best way to do it. I see. Jada, I've got to say, I don't know where you live, but certainly in England where I live, in the summer, when it's conducive for many people to come out and do some plein air painting, you'll find that even on, I don't know what your climate's like, but you'll find you will struggle to a point to control the paint. When acrylic is out in the air, it's not just the water evaporation. Air or hot sunny air over your painting will quite naturally suck the moisture out, and you will have no end of problems, not only with the paint drying on here, but also drying here in your wet palette if that's what you're using. And my advice would be, if I may, and that will be to paint in either oil or watercolor outdoors, taking notes or whatever studies, and bringing those notes and photographs and sketches back into the studio area, and working inside with acrylics. You'll end up, well, I'm only talking from experience when I've taken groups of people outside, and some of them have been insistent on painting in acrylic. I can't stop that, that's their choice, but the whole event is eclipsed from their point of view, because they don't enjoy it, because it's just a very frustrating situation that they find themselves in, being able to control the pigments and the paints not only on the canvas or but also within the paint palette itself. So New York, well, it's probably, I don't know, it's probably got parts of it in terms of the temperatures very similar to ours in certain parts. But what I'm trying to say is that be aware that if you're going to go outside anywhere, especially when the sun is shining, that you will end up having frustrating moments and wondering what the heck you were doing out there with these paints. They can be painted with inside or out. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but I'm trying to make you aware of that there are certain limitations, I think, outside that can cause ultimate frustrations, which could, if not controlled, sort of taint your enjoyment of painting outside. And I think painting outside is a wonderful way of working, and I think though that if you do it, it was that's what I was hoping to conquer. Well, yeah, I mean, if you've listened to what I've said, Jay, then I think that you have to be aware that the paint does have limitations when it comes to working outside. It's not impossible. Please don't take it the wrong way. I'm not saying that you can't go out there. I just feel that you will experience issues that aren't ordinarily easily overcome outside. Inside, and if you take the trouble to take some studies outside in the field, you go out there and you do a few sketches, maybe take a little watercolor set. One is easier to set up, there's no doubt about it. I mean, taking acrylics out in the field, you need an easel, you need a wet palette, you need certain things with you, and it doesn't always end well. Whereas watercolor, you can have a little pad, little watercolor sketchbook. You can quite happily sit down on a park bench and paint away, enjoy that process, come back with that and a few photographs, and know that you've got something to work with on as doing like I'm doing. I mean, I've been out there. There's a picture of the lamb at some point I've taken. I've done a few sketches and I've done the watercolors, but essentially the acrylic is being done in the studio, where I have much greater degree of control over the medium per se. Have I missed anyone's questions? No, I don't think so. Right, okay, so I'm going to carry on then. And all you've seen me do while I've been nattering is just literally start putting in colours. Lots of colours, blues, umbers, ochres. All these subtle little changes of colour will not necessarily be the final colour of the lamp, but they are setting the groundwork so that I can increase warms or cools as I go. And I don't necessarily think in terms of, oh, this has got to be blue, that's got to be red, that's got to be brown, that's got to be green. I tend to work in shifts of warm and cool colour, and to me that is what it is all about. I don't necessarily call myself a tonalist painter, but I like the idea of painting tonally and bringing in values of colour as opposed to stark contrasts of colour. I'm just going to put an eye in so you can recognize the eye, and I think I'm just going to put a big blob in at the moment for the nose and coming down there like that. So I think we've got something going on. Colour is, or the nature of colour is a very extensive subject, and many scholars and artists alike have taken their entire careers studying it and never ever coming up with complete answers. There are theories. There are as many theories as there are people painting. And you ask 1,000 painters about colour theory, you'll get 1,000 different answers. But I think that at the end of the day, there are very few pure colour painters out there, but there are many painters that paint tonally, and I believe that I am more a tonal painter than anything else. I enjoy my tones and values. I mean, pure colour is one thing, but everything, when we reduce a colour from pure blue to a pale blue or to a darker blue with whatever colour, it doesn't have to be black, you can put brown to it, and you've reduced that blue's chroma, which is the term for colour, the intensity of colour, to a mere tone or value, if you're in America, about that. While painting the dark areas, should you drag the brush? That's a good point, Ben. The answer to that is I'm not really that fussed right now, because I've got a lot of little rim lights around here and lots of lovely little white marks up through there. So I'm sort of using, this is why I quite like a flat brush. If you've got a good quality one, if you look at the edge of that now, there's the face. You look at that edge, it's a nice fresh brush, and I can draw that and create some wonderful little marks in my paintwork. Now I do paint very thinly, it has to be said. Some people don't paint this way, others do. I like to paint in thin marks, purely and simply. I can then keep build. I can paint in layers as you would with a watercolor, or I can indeed paint with glazes, which is using transparent color. So over these light areas you've seen me put in little glaze, like here I'm going to put in a very weak color. So I'm going to use a little bit of sienna, a little bit of red oxide. I'm just going to sweep that down over this coat here. Now it's a very thin color. This is a glaze. The color is thin, and what it's doing, you've painted it over predominantly a light tone underneath, and that light tone is being affected color wise. We're shifting the color that you see. We're allowing that white to come through, like if you were doing a wash on a watercolor, you would allow that white paper to come through your watercolor. Here I'm not doing really anything different. Now one little word of warning when you come to do this: if you're glazing with acrylic, acrylic is made up of molecules, where you get a binder molecule and water molecule, and I think it's 2 to 1. And I think that what happens is that if you thin your paint too thinly with water, And by that I mean if you use about 80 to 85 or even more water to pigment, then the binder in here, the acrylic binder, so thin, so spread around your paper or board or canvas so thinly that it actually can't meet where it needs to. They can't join up and bond and make a great seal. So if you're going to paint thinly, that's fine. But if you're going to come in with such a thin wash, and you could corrupt your glaze, but there would be a potential risk in the future that paint can actually come away from the surface, because it's a little bit like painting your walls at home, and if you don't do that right, you can end up losing paint coming away from your wall. So the one way around doing that with acrylics, and we've already mentioned, I think, medium, is the fact that you can buy mediums that do assist you, not necessarily with delaying drying, but also with the idea of replacing water. And that is buying things like Flow Aid. Traditionally it was designed for airbrush artists to put in their airbrush and start to have more flow, but instead of adding water they added this mixture which allowed for the flow to occur but without corrupting the paint adhesion. So that's why you've got a thing called Flow Aid. Now it is as watery as water. Is that right? I think that's about right. And as such, people will use that and replace water with that. If they really want to glaze but still maintain the adhesion of their paint when it comes right down to it, then by using a Flow Aid or something similar, then you do have the benefit of that. And it's well worth considering for the future. Just mixing up a bit of an umbery or ochre, sienna-y, bluish color. So it's a mid-tone. Like I said, I paint a lot of tone or value. Got to think about our American friends. Just incidentally, Jada, is it about nearly 2 o'clock in the afternoon where you are? Have I got that right? I think from before, if I start a stream at 7, it's about 1 p.m. for you guys. I'd love to know if I got that about right. I know it depends on what time block you are in the US. Just coming down here, tapping some of that blue into that. You can see I've made a real sort of mess of that area. It doesn't really matter at all. We go nearly an hour and I haven't painted nearly half as much as I wanted to. Been doing a lot of chat, but not too much paint. I do apologise for that. Gonna come in here and just put in a little bit of pink colour, which is not pink at all. It's actually a bit of red oxide just to do that job. I punch a little bit in there and lose it. Little hints of warms and cools. That's all I've been doing. Little touches of colour here and there, and I work up in very, very thin layers. You'll see me tap so many bits off as well, and just moving it around, not just with the brush, with my fingers too, and having a lot of fun, I've got to say, in doing that. But you'll suddenly, when you start putting the highlights into this at some point, you'll start seeing all these lovely little shapes come together. At least that's what I hope, anyway. (2:48 p.m.) Okay. So I was wrong. So we started at 2 p.m. your time. I must try and remember that. But hopefully that's not too difficult a time for our American friends to enjoy this and get involved in future. Now, before I forget, and I know I will because I'm terrible like that, is that the next stream on YouTube will be in 2 weeks' time. I don't have a calendar here, but it will be 2 Sundays from now, all being well. And post-analysis on this is that we we don't give up because of tech. I think we're working quite nicely actually. I'm going to have a quick look at the stats on the OBS and see where we're at. Actually, it's behaved quite well now. It's sort of settled down, so I'm quite happy with that. And I know Ben and I will go into some tech details towards the after the stream and a post analysis. Oh, it sounds quite professional, doesn't it? Post analysis. We shall see. I'm just tapping in the odd little bit of detail, just a little bit more information in certain places. You can come straight in and bang a load of dark colors in, and why would you need to do that? What we're doing here is just enough to enhance what we're looking at, and the darks in here will be lighter next to them, and so on and so forth. I'm going to put in a little bit. I love this color. This is cobalt teal. Now I use it a lot in oils, and I love it in acrylic, and I love it in watercolor too. It's just a very, very special color that you think when you put it in that it's just too garish, but if you mute it down as I'm doing here and use it pretty much as a glaze in places, it is just a stunning color. It really is. Going to put some up in here. Works some great with some yellows into some of your green values, which we can put in other places further on. Okay, so I'm just looking to see now how far off I am, starting to actually add some more details in. You'll notice with thinner acrylics, they will dry a little duller than you put them on, or at least where you thought that's a bit wet. If you put your colors on, you think, oh yeah, that's nice and bright, and when you look back and it's dry, you think, ah, okay, it's not quite what I intended. So you have a similar thing with watercolor, where you put a watercolor on and you think, oh, that's intense, that's great, and all of a sudden when it's dry much paler, much lighter, and you think it's disappeared. What happened? I don't know what happened. Well, that's the nature of the beast. It happens also with gouache, and it can happen to a point with oils, but not as noticeable. The biggest thing with oils is that the color can actually sink and cause you a problem that way, but that's always recoverable, and so too is any discrepancy on the color that you intended here with what you end up getting. So yeah, don't worry about it, just work with it and move forward. Oh, okay, Keith, thanks for that. Anybody up for a stream next weekend? I do want to get two into May. I can spread them out a little bit more in June, but I really would like to get a couple into May. Maybe it's because we've got so many bank holidays doesn't help, and of course trying to do one of these on a bank holiday means that there's a big potential of losing the odd person who would normally be here, and I don't want to exclude people because of whatever's going on in the month. So what about next week in then Winsor Newton Professional Acrylic, suppose you don't darken as much as after drying? Well, yeah, I've used them. I haven't put experiments on. They will lighten. They won't change too. I don't think they change that much, but they just change a little bit. You just need to be aware of that. I don't think anything is going to be so much of a problem. I think the problem arises if you want something to be really punchy. I think as an oil painter you get the idea that you get this beautiful punchy mark with oils, and it's a nice statement. I'm just putting a little bit of his foot in there. The idea is, I'm going to have to come up here, I'm afraid. Hang on. Right. There we are. I'm going to put a bit of information down on the base here where it's going into the grasses, and then here at the bottom of the foot. I forget what I was saying now. Alright. Now still need to come in with some more detail. I did show you a lot of brushes at the start, but I also should have said if I hadn't. I don't use them all. They're there if I need them, but I don't automatically use them all. I'm just going to put a little bit more dark around the muzzle for our little lamb, and just to put in the eye a little bit more solidly, coming down here to the tear duct. Okay, that's not the finish of it. We're going to just make it a little bit wider, a little bit light, and a little bit too small. Increase the size of the eye. I think that will be fine for the moment. Certainly, I'm just going to put a little sense of color in there, which is suggestive of the eye on the other side. The mouth comes down around like so, and then comes this way and up there. Again, if you do something that's not quite right, don't worry about it. Just work with it until you come back in and alter some of the other colors, and then you can just go over the top of it and sort it. Not a problem. Now I'm going to come in here with a slightly darker value here before I carry on and put some highlights in place. And we're sort of getting to that point with the painting where, you know, I mean, you're going to start putting in those details, and it's all of a sudden it's going to start taking some real exciting form. The thing for me and acrylics is that working in oil, there's a certain thixotropic, with oils. They work thinning down with oils, hence obviously what they are. And because of that, the amount of tension in the oil compared to that of water is vastly different. So getting some very, very finite lines and details in oil can be a little bit more of a problem than it would be in using acrylic. Okay, well, I think that it may have to be next weekend for another stream, which means I've got to work very fast. If it can't be, then it will have to be the bank holiday, and I'll put a final decision on that. So just keep an eye on my YouTube channel and just see where we're going to go with that. I'm not even sure if I'm clear next week or the other next week afterwards, so I better check with the boss before I do any actual planning. But that's the idea. Once I get rolling with this, and once we get any tech issues out the way, then I will have a structured timetable, as it were, and people will get to know when and how things are happening, and they can tune in regularly and know and expect that it will be happening as expected. Sorry. Never mind. Right, I'm going to put a little bit more green in, a little bit more sap green. I just want to bring some of these colors down in here now. Suggestive, nothing more. This is just suggesting that it could be grasses and a little bit of thicket behind this fella. It's, I know, on a flat surface. I put a little bit of sienna. Red and green are complementary, of course, and they do work in harmony, as well as killing each other off in this instance and making a chromatic grey. So all I'm doing is just scribbling around here to suggest other things going on in our background, and it's so that I can then bring this color down and to give me something around the animal's foot that I can work with and then add to in the fullness of time. It may not be tonight. I may sort of finish this later on in the next few days, in the studio or at the gallery, whichever. Coming in here, I'm going to come up under there, and now I'm going to isolate some of these shapes of the leg and the body. Bring that all the way down. Close off these spaces of grey. Make sure that they have some sort of reasonable connection with the next shape moving forward. I think that works. Okay. Tracy, hello Tracy. Have some Acrylic Interactive. I haven't used them yet. Have you tried them? I was sent some, to be fair, and I did look at them. I don't think I've ever used them, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, I don't know much about their properties, to be fair, Tracy, so it would be wrong of me to spout out about them when I actually haven't got too much experience with the paint themselves. Although that said, I'm sure they work very well. They've been sold for quite a while now, I believe, and I know others who have used them and not had a problem. Right, I'm just going to come down here, clear out this area now. My brush marks are fairly random. What I don't like is that, and I tell my students off for doing this, and that is they've gone round the animal and leaving that sort of mark as though I've cut it out. So I'm going to have to work a little harder to make that go away. I can do, it's not a problem, it's only a few extra layers, a little bit extra work just to blend in colours, as it were. Use a little bit of this again, come in, and maybe a bit of blue to cool that colour down, and we just come back in like this and get rid of those horrible marks in that way. Maybe a bit of white and a little bit of blue. Okay, so now that will be fine, I'm sure. Don't forget, this is all an initial colour. If it stands at the end and you like it, don't change it. Why, you don't need to. But essentially it is enough to get us going with the painting, get us started, get it moving. So nothing here is set in stone, it's not finished. We can add to it, we can take away from it. All we're doing is feeling our way and setting the scene for the final part, which is all that lovely detail. Okay, I don't know how many are watching. How many are watching, Wendy? Right, so I think we've got enough to start bringing in some nice highlights. Now the strongest highlights are up around the ears and over the eyes and around the area, somewhere on this leg here and on the tail and this back leg. And for those you can put in white if you want, but if you add a little tap of either a lemon yellow or an acrylic, cadmium yellow, then you will actually increase the intensity of that white. Look how bright that's suddenly gone. Now if it was on just against the paint color, you wouldn't really see that as a bright yellow color. It's only as intense as it is because I've got the dark colors around it, and that's what brings out the brightness of any color, is by having, I always say to my students that if you've got whatever you've got that you want light, make everything around it darker. It doesn't have to be black, but around it darker. If you want something to appear dark on here, make things around it lighter. Now the way to do that, and is commonly called using counter change to do that. And counter change is literally where you go around here, and I know I've got light and light here, but essentially you go for dark and light, or light and dark. If you use those changes from the background to the animal or the structure or the building, if you make those subtle observations where you've got a light substance against a dark substance, then you will throw your item out forward. That's the plan. I'm just going to tap on here. Just want to suggest a little bit of hair, just tapping right on the edge there of that ear. I'm going to do the same up around here. Just tap in a little bit of, don't make too much. Be careful you just don't keep tap 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 and end up with a 5-foot ear. You just want to sort of break it out a little bit, something like that. And I'm going to come around here and just add in a bit of light through there and bring that down through here as well, leaving a little area here because you've got a muscle through there over the top of the eye, and it goes up into the skull. I'm going to come in and I'm going to use a little lighter pinky color. I might just do is just nip in a little bit of red into there just to make that suffusion a little pinker. I don't want to make it too obvious, and I think I've probably gone a little too far with that. Right, now then, quickly let's move forward because time is getting on, and I did say that this would be an hour and a half. Well, if it's the first one and we go further than that, I hope people don't mind too much. I come in, bring in a little bit more yellow, Naples yellow. Naples yellow is quite good because it's quite a cool yellow. There's a bit of blue in that yellow. So if you had a bright yellow like this one, lemony yellow, which is actually cad yellow light, or one of these two, these are primary yellows in a sense, but this one is cooler, and it still has a marvelous effect on putting some bright color into your highlights like that without actually punching the heck out of it with a pure yellow. You do maintain a little bit of control. Now you know that I'm tapping away here. Now I'm leaving little bits of that color. This is where putting those midtones or lighter midtones or darker midtones in ahead of time, because all I'm doing now is suggesting those lovely little bits of fur on this wool. Get it right. Little bits of wool on this animal, which are, so because it's a young animal, it's just growing, so there's lots of tangled little bits of wool, and by allowing that form to be quite open, by tapping these shapes in the general direction that they are on the side of the animal, on the leg, or wherever it might be, then you are suggesting wool, and you're showing the viewer that there are little air pockets or fissures underneath with all those other extra lovely colors and depths of color. Coming in with a bit more blue on the edge here, because as I come round they're a little cooler in some of these places, so I want to kill some of the white, and maybe up through here just a little cooler as it comes round to the rump, maybe a little light there, a little yellower if anything up on there. We'll come back to that one, and just judging that down, I'm going to come in with some of this color we've already mixed, and it's going to mix with white, so it's going to be a little lighter than what's already there, but you get the idea that we are taking our colors down and around that shape and into shadow. Going through here, doing very much the same sort of thing, but we've got more colors going on, so it's not just the one color. I'm going to come in with a little bit more blue and tap into a little bit of that as well. So I come in here and play around with some of these intermediate lights and darks on that back leg. A very, very orangey color through here. Not quite sure why that should be, but never mind. We're going to put some of that in. It's a nice strong contrast color to the blues, so we're going to use it. Okay, going to leave that for now though, and we'll come back onto it. Right, any more chats? No. Right, I need to work on the head a little more now. So I'm going to start using that chisel look here. I'm going to put in a little bit of shape in here that could be the way the hair is moving. If you look at it, it's coming down. It goes sort of like a little coronet of wool, like that, in that sort of shape. Have a quick drink. Right. Now, where was I? Yes. Using the edge of the brush once more to suggest the lovely little fur. I call it fur, I'm sorry. I know it's not fur. It's wool. But I still want to suggest how that is sort of lovely and short tufts of wool at this point. As we come down here, little suggesting gaps between, and it's all it is the I keep saying wool, a fur. Oh, you know what I mean. I keep saying that. I do apologize, but yeah, it's just showing here. It's very short, very stubbly, and it's very thin, and so you got these little lines that run across there. But then we've got the little bit of the muzzle here. I'm going to bring that up, and I'm just using little taps of the brush to fill in all the spaces and the areas that I want to suggest that there is a line or a way or direction that this wool is traveling and going. I don't want it to get too bright. It looks bright here, but it's not as bright as you think. It's a little brighter than that though. Just come down in here with a little light down under there, under the chin, and then that jaw goes up through there. We're going to make that like that. There's a shadow underneath, but there is also the sort of filling out the cheeks of the face, as it were, and a little bit of wool going that way as well. So again, if you get to the end of this and your highlights you feel that are not sufficient, then you can just go in with another layer and add more information. Now the painting's got a long way to go when it terms of finish. We're not going to get that far tonight, unfortunately. I will finish this over the next few days, mainly probably at the gallery when I get 5 minutes spare. Just using the very corner edge of that brush, being very careful. Good brush will give you a nice even small mark. I was talking earlier about the nature of oil being quite thixotropic and not coming off with oil as water will take acrylics off. And what I found many years ago from painting in oil and in acrylic, and I was painting both all the time and jumping from one medium to the next, was the fact that I got so incredibly detailed, so pulled in to my painting in acrylics, because I had the ability, unlike painting in oil, I had the ability to really get some detail going, and it's not so easily accomplished in oil. It can be, but it's not so easily done. But with acrylic, you just have, because water does not cause the issues, then you can get in here and you can put some real detail together. I think we're starting to make this little animal come together. Maybe just a few strokes. I'm almost drawing these lines of wool in. I'm just drawing them with the very corner edge of this brush. Like that. As part of my, I'm going to Good luck with that, Jada. I hope it works out. Cheers on that. Yeah, I have to say that that is always my problem with acrylics, Jada. I sort of sit down and the painting could take some quite considerable less time, but the ability to be able to put that detail in, I love it. But I think also when I look back at why I love acrylics, I think it is for the fact that I can get that detail going. I can work with that and I love it. And so to that end, I sort of, like I said earlier, is working with the positives on a product as opposed to fighting the negatives. And I think that's quite important to work with acrylic, use its strengths and embrace that. And then if you want the other direction, then go into oils and start playing with those. And yeah, use the two. I was brought up on both. I was painting both in acrylic and in oil before I was actually painting proper, what I call properly, with watercolors. And so you see I'm just doing this little tappy action now along the back, just trying to stimulate the idea of this wool is in little clumps as it's moving down, just using that little corner. I know, I do apologize, I start talking then I go off topic, I completely forget what I was on about. I do apologize for that. But if there's something I was saying that you didn't get or you want me to talk about again, please just comment on that and I'll come back to it. Right, and just coming in here with some more detail, just some cooler lights suggesting the little areas of the wool. Now I'm getting into this. I could carry on all night. I love it. I mean, getting into a painting. Let's talk about that for a minute, because you know, so many people when they start a painting, and I've always said you do have a very, very definite idea of where you want your painting to go right at the very start, and as time goes on it can be quite an issue to maintain that visualization, especially if your work is causing you a little bit of grief along the road. And we've all done it, we've all been there, and it's not an easy one to overcome. But if you can manage by maybe taking a break, taking a few days break, or just go and make a cup of tea, come back to it refreshed and have another look at it with fresh pair of eyes the next morning. I've often come down to a painting that I left the night before in great frustration because it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, and I could not create that answer. I leave it, come back to it, and hopefully that will sort itself out. And those who know me well will know that I have an elephant painting on my gallery wall that actually took me 19 years to paint, because I had it in various stages of finish and could not, for the life of me, I could not sell out all the little issues and things with it. I just couldn't do it, and it sat in one studio after another for many, many years. And one day I thought, when I came across it, do I chuck this away or do I get on with it? And but I felt that I'd come too far to throw it away, so I spent the next couple of months painting it and creating not completely reworked, but quite a bit of reworked, and it came out fine enough to be able to put it on my gallery wall and enjoy looking at it until it gets sold. Just jumping across to this side, just want to put in a little bit more colour. Jade, I have painted. It's great to hear that, and great to know that that plein air is doing it for you, because I love doing plein air. Unfortunately, I've sort of not given it up, because I got a sister channel to this one with Clarabelle involved. That's my little home from home on wheels, my studio, my mobile studio, and I've been working on restoring Clarabelle for the last year or so, and I haven't had too much time to get out in her and paint and do stuff that I want to. Hopefully towards the end, or certainly the middle of this year, I'm hoping that pretty much everything I need to do in Clarabelle is finished, enough for me to then get out in her and experience a little bit more fun, a bit more plein air. But primarily I've gone back, as most of you will know, to my wildlife roots as a painter, and apart from doing the odd little bit if I'm doing some British wildlife, I tend to sort of paint most of that in the studio. So that's another reason why there may be a slightly diminished amount of plein air work, but I do enjoy it, gotta say, and I envy some of my friends quite a bit who can get out there and create one after another plein air day and have so much fun in the process. That yeah, but you know, it's a choice you make, isn't it? You know what you want to do, and it's up to you to decide to get out there and make it happen. All the time I'm trying to paint this land. Hopefully we're getting there slowly. I'm going to put some more light. We need some more light across the back here. Not going full on with the light right now, but we're getting there. Right, let's come across here and let's add some more lights in. It is lacking. We need to put a mid-tone in, and then we can come back over with a little bit more lighter lights in places. And I'm just tapping and dashing. That's all I'm doing. I'm not painting anything as such. I'm not even looking at the reference. I know roughly what I'm doing in that regard, and I'm just tapping away and trying to suggest these little nuggets of wool that are all over this little fella. And as that wool grows, then it just gets bigger, heavier and denser, of course, until the farmer comes along and takes it away. Not the animal, I'm talking about the fur. Shears it off and sends the fur to wherever it's going to go. Alright. It's all about layers, tons of layers. And if your layers get too bright, then come back in and put a glaze over them. Take them back down again. And this is one thing. I do love my oil. I grew up, and that's the medium that I pretty much started with as a youngster. When I was in my school years, I was always in the art studios, and I always had oil paints on the go. And that was back in the day when there wasn't a thing known as health and safety, and we had toxic paints such as flake whites, lead whites, and I still have a tin from those days. I don't know how I came by it, but I did. And yeah, so anyway, enough said about that. But yeah, I just grew up with oil paint, and but my trip into acrylics came fairly early on, and then I got into it a lot more when I was demonstrating for Liquitex as a company, and working for them, not on a salary, but for one show after another. They would call me up, and we're doing a show here, would you be available to do it, and things like that. And that's how it all went on. But it was a great time, and I digress. But yeah, I think we're making this look a bit like a lamb. Hope we are. I am using a sponge to apply fur. What are your thoughts on that? Well, I think sponges, depends on the sponge, I suppose. In a way, you can have a little bit of sponge. I mean, those again who know me well will know that I'm model railway modeler, or in America you call it model railroader, I think. And I use various artistic techniques to apply weathering on some of the locomotives and the landscapes and the buildings that I'm working on. And you know, sponges are very, very important. They can apply paint, they can take paint off, they can add layers of paint, and so I would never dismiss them. But the question I would ask, moreover, is if you've got adequately good brushes to do the job, why would you even need to cut up a sponge to play around with that? It can be fun to try out and see, I get that. But I'm just playing devil's advocate. I think that you can do so much with brushes. To use a sponge is just playing around with an idea. Nothing wrong with that. But just playing around with an idea generally. Alright. How are we doing? Been going from 7 to an hour and a half almost. Keith, Judah, I use 2 mediums, Winsor & Newton's flow improver and fluid retarder. Okay, there you go, Judah. There's an answer. I use Flow Aid myself to make more usable flow, as the word suggests, but I don't use the retarder like Keith does. But I know Keith's work. He's one of my students at the gallery, and he does good work. And so yeah, it's a good suggestion. I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to put some highlights on some of that. I need to get something going on this other leg as well. I've got a whole leg here that's been neglected completely. Put a few extra light colors as it's there. Then come back out here and just bring in a little bit more light coming down through here. Right, I'm not going to get too much done in here. I'm just going to look at putting a little bit of indigo, a little bit of green together, and just suggest in here, it's very, very thin, that's too wishy-washy. Clean your brush out, make sure you clean the bristles right back to there, because water will sit there and it will come back down the brush and it will join your paint and cause a bit of a wishy-washy thing, an affair, which is what I've just experienced. Okay, so I've got a bit of a stronger green going on, and I'm just going to come in here and just suggest a little bit of a possible shadow form. Again, nothing set in stone, just giving me a little bit of an idea in here. And puts the animal onto terra firma. So I think it's important. Don't want it floating in midair. Right, we can come back with more of that. It's just to sort of put it on the ground, as it were. So before we do finish, then please, if you've enjoyed this stream, then let me know in the comments underneath the stream if you have, and any thoughts that you may have had during the course of watching it that could improve or try and make the stream better. There's an enjoyable process for you guys. At the end of the day, it's no good me streaming to myself, and I want you guys to enjoy what you're seeing, and I will always be open to suggestions of trying to make it a little better. Can't say that I can do all of them, but we'll see what we can make happen at different times. But the process is all about wildlife, and it will be always in different media. That's my plan, is always to change my media, because I enjoy doing them all, but the constant will be wildlife. Now it could be domestic, it could be birds, it could be wildlife, it could be African, it could be American, it could be in watercolor, oil, or acrylics, or any medium that we like. Fair enough. I asked for that. Thanks, Jada. Yeah, so the idea is that I just want to play around and show people how I go about painting wildlife images. And please look out for the stream when I advertise. Got to decide whether it's going to be next week or the week after, but there'll be two, as I said earlier, in this month, and there will be two in June, and that will be followed by one in July and one longer, paid for, more considered stream on my Podia site. I think it's going to cost you, if you want to get involved with that, and you'll be so welcome to do so and support the channel and support the efforts. It will cost you £12. You'll get a much longer stream. You get all the information and notes ahead of time, and it'll be something that you can work on and work with and enjoy, and just enjoy. You start becoming part of a community. The idea is that my Podia site, or the other part of my main website, is built within Podia, and it's where all my courses are. And some of you are already course members, and many of you are on my community, and that community is young, but I want it to grow. I see the whole thing becoming a very useful place where people can showcase work that they've done. Doesn't have to be from my work, but wherever it is, showcase it, ask questions, get help, and all these different things that help make a community a viable place to become part of. So that's what I'm aiming to do, is develop online strategies within my Podia, and to have the ability that people can enjoy my courses, get involved with those, get involved with downloads, free stuff as well as paid. The streams or webinars will take shape over time, and all these things are designed to allow people a fuller experience and become part of the community that I'm trying to create in that area. So it is a work in progress. It's not going to be fulfilled overnight, and probably not over a couple of years, but over time it will develop, and I hope that it will be developed. It will develop into something really worthwhile. I want to try and create a situation where people have a artistic place to go and get help and learn more, and have like-minded people that they can talk to, friendships build. And I know from all my years as a teacher locally in my gallery that I have had so many students over those years come through my hands at different times. Some are no longer with us, sadly, and that is sad, but many have formed long-term friendships and long-term relationships, and one couple in all those years, two of my students became a couple, and that was really nice. But that was a long time ago now. But anyway, I digress. But the atmosphere is what I'm looking for. The ability to help people and create, in my own way, a little legacy of my knowledge over a period of time. That's the idea, without getting too over it. But yeah. So hopefully you guys are merely the start and the core of some of that, and I hope to enjoy your company over many, many years to come. Yeah, I agree with you, Ben. It really is. Anyway, where are we? We are approaching, well, we're just gone over an hour and a half. So if everybody is happy, do you mind if I just go until a little closer to 9 o'clock our time? If you're happy with that. If you want to get off, I understand. I don't want to keep you here longer than you need to be. And if you're completely all fed up and I'm just talking to myself, then I'll stop. But yeah, I'm just enjoying it. I mean, there's a long way to go yet, but nothing is painted quickly in anything. not to do it properly, not in my book. I feel that you know, there's so much you can be added to this, and I'm just adding that little extra detail here and there. That's the plan. Good, guys, well done. All right, I knew I could count on you. I'm getting a bit dry though. I've been talking for an hour and a half or plus now. I can hear my voice going a bit as well. Oh, most definitely. I can't see the name. Is that Cubs? Yeah, I do use watercolor, and you will see watercolor on these streams in the future. I'm not sure what the next one will be in. It could be watercolor, could be oil. I will do pastels. I will try and sort of give you a very rounded and broad idea of painting. And I know that can be very hard for a YouTube creator to create lots of interest from people out there, because some people really do only have the medium they work in as their favorite, and so it's very hard for somebody who just likes watercolor to want to come back and see oils or see acrylics or see something else. But I feel that I got trapped into that a couple of years ago on this channel, where I was just painting watercolor, and that's all I did, and people loved it and I enjoyed doing it. But I became a little frustrated over time, because I also loved acrylic. I used every other medium, and I wasn't able to teach it or show it without all the so-called YouTube gurus out there saying, oh, you have to niche down to doing one type of thing. And I sort of got a little bit fed up with that in the end, to be fair, and I decided to kick back and decided to, one, go back to my wildlife roots, which, as I know I keep saying, you all know, but at the same time to not restrict myself to one medium, to be able to paint in whatever medium I wanted to, and it was up to the viewer to decide for themselves if they want to stay with that or not. But there are plenty out there who love wildlife, and there are plenty out there who love multiple mediums, so those are the people that I've sort of been seeking to attract to the channel. But I understand that you know, wildlife can be painted in any media, from pencil, charcoal, color pencil, acrylics, gouache, watercolor, oil. Have I said that? Have I missed any out? Probably. But I love doing all of those, so that's what will happen in the future. Just going to put in a very quick few lights down the back of the leg here, a few extra ones on the front here, just trying to bring this up a little quicker. Not sure if I've drawn that back there. It looks a little bit stumpy around there, so I'm going to look at that in a moment. Put a bit of warmth into there. No problem, Judda. Thank you very, very much for joining us. If you have to shoot through, if I don't see you gone, thank you for joining, and hope to see you again very soon. And I am so extremely glad that the ability to get involved with your course was reconciled and sorted out. As I say, I was quite worried about that. But hopefully we'll see you on other streams. They're always going to be on a Sunday evening for the Brits, and that will be a Sunday afternoon for you guys in the States. And if you are joining me from any other country, I have no idea what the time will be for you guys, but I hope it's not an inconvenient one. Going down here with a bit more information. Let's say it needs a little bit more light on. Sharon, thank you for joining. Thank you very much for the nice comment too. Still a long way to go with it, but starting to take some shape. Funny, they sort of have a knee, and then the fur suddenly sort of goes back in a very funny old way. Sort of kicks back this way and then comes round in that little rosette of shapes going down through here to the back. Little tuffets of wool coming down from the knee like that. And they all are about legs, aren't they, at this age? They're just so full of leg. Very powerful legs as well. I've seen this one that is in this photograph and the one that is right next to in the reference photo, and I've seen several of them just leaping up massive heights and coming back down as though they were just on springs and go straight up again without a care in the world. Quite remarkable, some of the heights that they can achieve and some of the distances that they can actually leap and jump. I suppose in a way it's a defense mechanism as well. If they have to get out of danger, it's a good way to evade a predator. In this case probably a fox or something. Right, just checking on that. Need to get some light now up on the back, and I'm going to put a little bit more ochre, not ochre, but some Naples yellow into that. Not too strong, too obvious. Do need it there though. Taking the worst off the brush onto the brush and tap in a little bit more light through here and bringing down more information on our animal. And what I will do, if I can figure a way of doing it, not too sure yet, but I might certainly on my Podia, if you are on my community on Podia, the general one, you don't have to be on a specific one, but if you're on one of my Podia communities, then once this is done, once I've done the background and finished the rest of it off, I will post it there for those of you on the stream that are interested to see the final outcome of this little fella. It may not happen straight away, I've got a lot on, but it will happen at some point very soon. Just building up the lighter layers. I just realised I haven't put the numbers on yet. I'm going to do that in a moment. Let's do that right now. So we're going to use probably some cobalt turquoise, a little bit of cobalt itself. Probably not exactly the right colour, maybe a little bit of sap green into that. Definitely a lot more blue now. There's a bit too much sap green, I think. A little bit of cobalt. Mix the colours until you're happy. I think that's not far off. Take a lot of the paint off. You don't want too much for this. And there is somewhere up here a number 2, which I'm just going to sort of suggest that at the moment. I think it's a 2. It could be a 7. It could be almost anything. And then I'm going to come this way with it. And it's going to get darker in places. I don't know what this is. It could be a 4. I'm going to assume it's a 4. And I'm going to come down here with that like so. We've got a 4-2. Now I'm going to darken up that. I'm going to put some indigo to that colour. And a little bit of turquoise. Take a lot off the brush again. Just pop in here with some darker parts where we're looking through the fur to see where the paint's gone through in places, to create slightly darker values in that. And I'm going to do the same on here. So we've got a generalized colour, but we've got a little stronger colour where the paint is soaked into the wall on the spray. I think that will do the job, and it gives it its nice number. Ah, Jada, I thought we had it sorted. Okay, yeah, I will get back in touch tomorrow if the same chap who handled the first one is done. Did you do all that he asked you to do in those links that I sent to you? I need to go back to him and say that you've tried everything that he suggested without any sort of positive outcome, and then hopefully we can take it further. But it may well be until after the 18th before I can get this resolved for you. Seems a little bit more detailed to do than I knew. Okay, yeah, okay, Jada, leave it with me. I will relay that message tomorrow and see if I can come back with anything more concrete for you to work with. I'm so sorry about this, but I do appreciate your understanding and patience in the matter. We'll get you there, we'll get you resolved and sorted and enjoying it, that one. A little bit more light onto some of these, or taps at the end of the corner of the brush. And this is the thing about acrylics, you probably would be a lot more loose when it comes to brush marks with oils. At least I would tend to think I was, but because I can get away with so many little taps and it's dry and I can tap again and it's dry and I can tap again, I love it because you just build up these multitude of layers of color and light and dark on your subject matter. You can do so much. As I said earlier, I only paint very, very thin layers. I do the same in oil. I'm not a heavy impasto painter. Never have been. Probably never will be. I've tried it. I've tried it several times and not stopped doing it because I couldn't do it. I stopped doing it because it didn't actually hold a lot of appeal to me personally. So I would revert back to my normal way of painting, which is to work up in finer layers, and that's the same in oil, watercolor, or anything else. A bit of warmth down into that tail. I'm going to use the greens later on to fluff that tail out. It's a little bit like a, I don't know, carrot, a white carrot, but it will have a little bit more texture to that white carrot later on, and I will come in a way to show you right now a little bit of that by coming into these shades here on a leg and just come back in like this. Take some of that material out of the tail, like so, and then when that's dry, come in with a smaller brush and just run a few light fur bits over it. Thank you, Jella. Right, I'm going to put a little bit of depth in the ear, a little bit of red oxide, a little bit of blue, cobalt blue will do. I put a little bit of a darker mark in here to show that it's the inside part of the ear, which it didn't before. Okay, let's give that a bit more definition, and we can come in with a slightly stronger idea of that with a little bit of burnt sienna just in here, making it a little richer. Bit of cobalt blue with that. Just enough. We can go back in if we feel we need more later on, but I think that's quite enough at the moment, using the residual colour that's on the brush just to warm up some of these shady areas up into the fur here. So again, I've worked darker, then I come up lighter, and now I'm going back in with a few taps of darker again, just adding an extra layer of interest and the ability to see down the wool fibers into the shadowy parts. And that's really what this is all about, is that understanding of creating these little nuggets of wool where you, when they almost are on top of you, they look like little channels looking down into them and into the darker recesses of where they are. And this process will go on and on and on in this fashion until I am happy that I've gone probably as far as I possibly can to suggest a woolly and wonderfully affectionate looking lamb to the viewer. And a painting like this sells not on the quality of the painting, although it does have a part to play, but it sells on the R factor. People love lambs, they love ducklings, they love baby, anything really. Puppies, kittens, you name it, they love it. And you're selling the R factor. You're selling, what is it people say? You sell the sizzle, not the burger. That's probably not a good analogy, but you know, you understand what I mean. You're selling that R factor. A bit of that blue in there now, just to give me some cooler darks down in this part. Not too heavy. There's a few more down in here I would like as well. Okay, so last questions. If anybody's got one, now's the time, because we got about 7 minutes and I will start thinking about saying my goodbyes to everybody and thanking them, or thanking you all for your support. And I hope that that support carries on for a long time. And if you are on my channel and you are not a subscriber, can I ask you to subscribe? If you feel that I warrant your subscription, if you think I've done enough to get you to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And if you want to become even more active on that, then you can always add comments, share to your friends, and give it a like, all those things. People don't think too much of it when they watch a video on anybody's channel, not just mine, and they watch it and they move on to the next one. But all those little interactions help the YouTube algorithm to say, you know, this is not a bad video. Let's push it on to somebody else and let somebody else enjoy it as well. And the thing is about YouTube as a platform, it has, obviously it's got shareholders that need to know that the platform is performing. And the only way that YouTube or any other platform like it works is because they need to keep people on their channel. So channels that have content where people constantly watch it and look forward to it and enjoy it, keep people watching, those channels are rewarded by the algorithm pushing them out to even more of an audience. And only by people watching, liking, subscribing and all those things on my channel, it helps me grow, because it helps you understand that it's worth pushing this out to somebody else who also might, like you, enjoy the content enough to push it on to somebody else, and so that ball continues. Sorry if I'm lecturing, I don't mean to be, but as a creator, it is just nice to know that people not only like what you do, but also get behind it and support the channel that they like by getting involved with it on a slightly different level than just the casual observer. Ben, question, are you doing a recording of completing of this lab? Good call, Ben. I probably will. It makes a lot of sense, so I probably will do that, and I may put that out on the platform as a little standalone just to complete. So I will do that. That's a good call. I've been a subscriber for a while now. Sharon, thank you so much. Yeah, I wasn't sort of suggesting anybody on here wasn't, but it's just in case if anybody wasn't. I do appreciate everybody's subscription because, you know, I've been running this channel for a few years now, and there's an awful lot of work goes in that many people really don't fully understand what goes in to creating a channel and constantly coming up with enough content to keep people happy and interested. And so yeah, anyway, thank you very much for all of that, and I hope I wasn't preaching too much. Okay, I'm gonna probably put my brushes down at this point. I don't think the extra 4 minutes I will achieve so much more. I will, however, look at this in the cold light of day and in the calmness of being on my own and not performing, as it were, for you guys. I will sit back and see how I can finish this to a standard that I really want. And not that I really am happy with it, don't get me wrong, but I want to do more. And I will, as Ben has suggested, I will film this final and put the result of the whole thing possibly out on my Podia site as a download, and you can get to look at it there. And I might put the other half out with an abbreviated part of the stream as a YouTube film at some point. Thanks, Sharon, appreciate that. All right, so anyway, there we are. Let's bring that down out the way. You can see the whole of the canvas, or the whole panel. Right, there you go. It's been slightly longer, 2 hours instead of an hour, hour and a half, but I'm sure none of you mind. You've got earlier up the stream, you've got the colors used, but I will try and at some point make a way of showing you those. I actually did intend to put them at the bottom of the promo for tonight's event, but I forgot to put that in the details underneath, so that's where that went to, I'm afraid. So anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed that, and I hope that you'll get something from it to move on with your own if you're working in acrylics or if you're painting lambs. It doesn't matter. But yeah, enjoy it, and you can look at that stream as often as you like. It's always going to be up on YouTube now for you to enjoy and work back on. And don't forget, if you want to have a go at this one, that the references are either on my Podia or they're on my Patreon. They don't cost you anything to download. Download the lineup as well, by all means, and use it and enjoy it and have a go at it. And if you are on the community of my Podia, which I hope you are, if you're not already, get on there and put the results of yours up on there. Let us all see it, and I'll help you where I can, answer any questions if you get stuck anywhere, if I can do that too. I'm always here to try and give you the best that I can as an educator, and as well as an artist and a like-minded person. So yeah, now then, Graham, thank you, appreciate that. Where are we? Just having a quick look. Okay, so Right, there you go, everybody. I'm going to love you all and leave you all to the rest of your evening or afternoon if you're on the state side of this. And I'm going to look forward to your company in the next stream. Please look out on my channel for when that is. I will post the thumbnail and the subject matter and the time, etc. It'll either be next Sunday or the Sunday after, but it will be there. And hope to see you all there. Tell your friends about it. Tell them to hook into it and get involved. And I love to see more and more of you as time grows. So spread the word. And thank you very much for your support and your kindness. Catch you all next time round. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Yeah, you might like to, Keith. I know you see me weekly, but I don't think I do a weekly stream. It's a long time since I've done one a week. Take care, my man. Take care, everybody. And thank you very much for your kind support and your thoughts. See you very, very soon on the next stream.